R/AITA grandmother called me cheap, so I stopped helping her forever. You're so cheap, honestly. I'm embarrassed to call you my grandchild. The words hit me like a slap across the face as every conversation at my cousin Sarah's dining room table ground to a halt. 15 family members suddenly found their plates fascinating, forks frozen halfway to their mouths. My grandmother sat there with her arms crossed, glaring at me like I'd personally ruined her 78th birthday. All because of a $30 necklace. I stared down at the small jewelry box she'd shoved back across the table toward me, the modest silver pendant I'd saved up for glinting under the chandelier light. It wasn't the diamond tennis bracelet she'd been hinting about for months, the one that cost more than my rent. Grandma, I started, but she cut me off with a dismissive wave. Don't grandma me. Sarah got me this beautiful cashmere scarf. She held up the cream-colored wrap my cousin had given her, and look what you bring. Something from the clearance rack at Target, I'm sure. After everything I've done for you. After everything she'd done for me. My stomach twisted into knots. I wanted to remind her right there, in front of everyone, about the 3 years I'd spent driving across town twice a week to take her grocery shopping because she claimed she couldn't manage alone. The Saturday mornings I'd sacrificed studying for my dissertation to fix her leaky faucets and replace light bulbs she was perfectly capable of changing herself. The $50 here, $100 there I'd handed over whenever she complained about her bills running high, money I scraped together from my pathetic graduate student stipend while surviving on ramen and peanut butter sandwiches. But I couldn't say any of that. Not with my parents shooting me warning looks from across the table, not with my uncle clearing his throat awkwardly, not with my little cousins watching this whole disaster unfold. I thought you'd like it, I managed weakly, hating how small my voice sounded. Like it? She laughed, but there was nothing warm about it. Honey, this is the kind of thing you give to an acquaintance, not family. Not someone who matters to you. She picked up the necklace and let it dangle from her fingers like it was contaminated. I suppose when you're scraping by in school, living off handouts, you forget what quality looks like. The table was dead silent now except for the soft clink of her setting the necklace down. Heat flooded my cheeks as I felt everyone's eyes on me, some sympathetic, others carefully neutral, but all uncomfortable. Sarah jumped in with forced cheerfulness, who wants dessert? I made Grandma's favorite chocolate cake. But the damage was done. I sat there for the remaining hour of dinner, mechanically eating birthday cake that tasted like sawdust, nodding along to conversations about work and weekend plans while my grandmother held court about her various ailments and needs. She mentioned, loudly, that her water heater had been making concerning noises, and she'd probably need someone handy to take a look. Her usual signal that she expected me to come running with my toolbox. As we all stood to leave, she pulled me aside in the entryway. You know I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, sweetheart, she said, suddenly switching to her sugar-sweet voice. But you understand why I was disappointed, don't you? Maybe next time you could save up a little longer, get something more appropriate. I stared at her, this woman I'd been bending over backwards to help, and felt something fundamental shift inside my chest. Sure, Grandma, I said quietly. I understand perfectly. But for the first time in 3 years, I finally understood something else entirely. The drive home from Sarah's house felt like the longest 20 minutes of my life. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white, replaying every humiliating second on an endless loop. The way she'd sneered at my gift. The way everyone just sat there and let it happen. The way she patted my arm afterward like I was a misbehaving child who needed gentle correction. My phone buzzed as I pulled into my apartment complex. A text from my mom, * grandma's just set in her ways. You know she loves you. Maybe we can talk tomorrow, *. I turned my phone face down without responding. My studio apartment felt especially cramped when I walked in, the contrast stark after spending the evening in Sarah's sprawling suburban home. Stack of unpaid bills on the counter. Textbooks covering every surface. The space heater I'd been using because turning up the actual heat would mean choosing between warmth and groceries this month. I sat on my second-hand couch and opened my laptop, determined to lose myself in dissertation research. But I couldn't focus. Every few minutes, my mind wandered back to my grandmother's words. After everything I've done for you. What exactly had she done for me? I found myself opening a notes app and starting to make a list, like the obsessive graduate student I was. What my grandmother had actually done for me versus what I'd done for her. Her side was depressingly short. Christmas gifts growing up, usually clothes that didn't fit or books I'd already read. A graduation card with $20 when I finished undergrad. Occasional family dinners where she'd lecture me about my life choices. My side filled up fast. 3 years of twice-weekly grocery runs. At least a dozen repair jobs around her house. The time I'd spent an entire weekend helping her organize 40 years of accumulated junk in her basement. Money, I started adding up rough estimates and felt sick when the total climbed past $2,000. $2,000. While I'd been living off generic cereal and wondering if I could afford new tires for my car. My phone rang. Grandma's name flashed on the screen. I almost didn't answer. But 3 years of conditioning is hard to break. Hello. Oh good, you're home safe. Her voice was back to its usual sweet tone, like nothing had happened. Listen, dear, about that water heater I mentioned. It's gotten worse since this afternoon. Making these terrible banging sounds. I'm worried it might be dangerous. I closed my eyes. Here it was. The test. I was hoping you could swing by tomorrow morning. I know Sundays are your study days, but this really can't wait. You know how these old houses are. Her house wasn't even that old, maybe 30 years. And the terrible banging sounds were probably the same minor settling noises she'd been complaining about for months. I'm really busy tomorrow, Grandma. Busy? The sweetness in her voice developed an edge. More busy than making sure your grandmother doesn't get carbon monoxide poisoning or have her water heater explode. There it was. The guilt trip. The catastrophizing. The implication that if anything happened to her, it would be my fault for not dropping everything to help. Maybe you could call a plumber. I suggested. She actually scoffed. A plumber? Do you know what they charge? I'm on a fixed income, you know. I can't just throw money around like some people. Like some people. Like me, apparently, with my graduate student budget and my Target necklaces. I really can't tomorrow. The silence stretched long enough that I wondered if she'd hung up. I see. Her voice had gone cold. Well. I suppose I know where I stand now. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my heart racing like I'd just done something terrible instead of simply setting a boundary. This was just the beginning. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls. Not from my grandmother, from practically everyone else in my family. Mom, Dad, Uncle Jim, Sarah, even my cousin Mike who I hadn't spoken to in 6 months. My phone had been on silent, but the notification screen looked like someone had died. My stomach dropped. Had something actually happened to her water heater? Had I been wrong to? I called my mom back first. Oh, thank God, she answered on the first ring. Why weren't you answering? Grandma called me at 6 this morning saying her water heater was flooding the basement and you refused to help her. What? I sat up so fast I got dizzy. It's flooding. Well, no. Uncle Jim went over and it's fine. Just some condensation she thought was a leak. But she's telling everyone you hung up on her and won't help anymore because you're angry about some birthday present nonsense. Some birthday present nonsense. Right. She said you told her to figure it out herself and that you don't care if she dies alone in that house. I never said that. I said I couldn't come over today because I was busy. Honey, I know you're hurt about last night. But she's family. She's old and scared and manipulative, I finished. Mom, she humiliated me in front of everyone, and now she's lying about what I said. She's not lying, she's interpreting. You know how she gets when she feels abandoned. Abandoned. Because I said no to one request after 3 years of saying yes to everything. After I hung up with Mom, I made the mistake of checking the family group chat that Sarah had created for coordinating family events. I rarely posted in it, but I scrolled through to see what fresh hell awaited me. Asterisk Sarah, can someone check on Grandma today? She seems really upset, asterisk. Asterisk Uncle Jim, already went by. Water heater is fine. But she's pretty worked up, asterisk. Asterisk Aunt Lisa, what happened? She called crying about being all alone, asterisk. Asterisk Mom, just a misunderstanding. Everything's fine, asterisk. Asterisk Sarah, maybe we should all try to visit more often. I feel bad that it's always the same people helping, asterisk. I stared at that last message. The same people. As if anyone else had been helping at all. When was the last time Sarah had driven across town to take her grocery shopping? When had Uncle Jim fixed anything in her house besides this morning's imaginary crisis? My phone rang again. This time it was Sarah. Hey, I just wanted to check on you after last night. Finally. Someone acknowledging that what happened was messed up. I'm okay, I lied. Good. Listen, I know Grandma can be a lot sometimes. But she called me this morning really upset about the water heater situation, and I'm worried about her living alone in that big house. And there it was. Not calling to see if I was okay after being publicly humiliated. Calling to make sure I'd get back in line. Maybe she should look into getting professional help for maintenance issues, I suggested. Professional help is expensive. And you're so good at that stuff. Remember when you fixed her garbage disposal? She talked about it for weeks. Of course she did. Because it fed into her narrative that she had a grandchild who would handle everything for her. I can't keep being her on-call handyman, Sarah. I have my own life. No one's asking you to, okay, that's not fair. You do help a lot. But maybe we could work out some kind of schedule. Split the responsibilities. Silence. I mean, I'd love to help more, but you know how crazy work has been, and with the kids. There was always a reason why everyone else couldn't help. But somehow there was never a reason good enough for me to say no. After Sarah hung up, promising vaguely to figure something out, I turned my phone completely off and tried to focus on my dissertation. But I kept thinking about that group chat message. The same people helping. Person. Singular. Just me. The week that followed was like watching a carefully orchestrated campaign unfold. My grandmother didn't call me directly again, but her presence loomed over every family interaction like a storm cloud. Tuesday, Mom texted that Grandma's arthritis was acting up and she couldn't carry her groceries from the car. Wednesday, Uncle Jim mentioned during his usual check-in call that her porch light had burned out and she was afraid to change it herself. Thursday, Sarah posted in a family chat about how some elderly people get depressed when they feel forgotten, along with an article about isolation in seniors. By Friday, I was ready to scream. The breaking point came when I ran into my neighbor Mrs. Chen at the campus coffee shop. We'd chatted a few times about our shared experience of being graduate students supporting family members. Her elderly parents lived with her and her husband. You look tired, honey, she said, settling into the chair across from me with her latte. Everything okay? I found myself spilling the whole story. The birthday dinner, the phone calls, the family pressure campaign. Mrs. Chen listened with increasingly raised eyebrows. Wait, she interrupted when I got to the part about the water heater emergency. You've been doing her household maintenance for 3 years. For free. She's my grandmother. My grandmother lives in Beijing and still pays a handyman when her sink acts up. Being family doesn't mean being a free contractor. She pulled out her phone and showed me a contact. This is who I call for my parents when I can't fix something myself. Reasonable prices, works with seniors. Want his number? I stared at the screen. It was such a simple solution that it felt almost revolutionary. But what if she really can't afford it? Then she can do what every other person on a fixed income does, prioritize her expenses, ask for help from everyone in the family instead of just you, or contact senior services. There are programs, you know. I didn't know. In 3 years of helping, I'd never thought to research what other support might be available. That evening, I finally turned my phone back on to find 12 new messages. But it wasn't just family this time. Asterisk unknown number. Hi, this is Janet from your grandmother's church. She mentioned you usually help with her yard work but haven't been by lately. The ladies' auxiliary was wondering if everything is alright, asterisk. My blood ran cold. She was spreading this beyond family now. Asterisk another unknown number, this is Bob from next door to your grandma. She said you might not be able to help with her gutters this fall like usual. Let me know if you want me to get some quotes from local services, asterisk. At least Bob was being helpful. But the fact that she was discussing our family business with neighbors made my skin crawl. The worst message was from my dad, asterisk your mother is getting calls from grandma's friends asking if you're sick or in some kind of trouble. This is getting out of hand. We need to talk this weekend, asterisk. I sat on my couch, surrounded by the schoolwork I'd been neglecting all week while this family drama consumed my mental energy, and felt something crystallize inside me. She was escalating. Making this about her being abandoned and neglected, painting me as the cruel grandchild who'd suddenly stopped caring. Building a narrative where she was the victim and I was the villain. But I had 3 years of receipts. 3 years of sacrifice that no one else in my family had made. I opened my laptop and started typing an email to the family group chat. If she wanted to make this public, if she wanted to involve neighbors and church friends and paint me as the bad guy, then maybe it was time everyone knew exactly what helping grandma had actually looked like. My finger hovered over the send button. This would change everything. There would be no going back from this kind of confrontation. But maybe it was time to stop being the family's designated pushover. I deleted the email without sending it. Not because I'd changed my mind, but because I realized putting everything in writing would just give them more ammunition to paint me as bitter and vindictive. Instead, I did something that felt much more powerful. I started saying no. To everything. Saturday morning, Mom called while I was finally making progress on my dissertation. Grandma needs someone to drive her to her doctor's appointment Monday. Her usual ride cancelled. She'll need to reschedule or find another way. Honey, you can't just. I can, and I am. She has a phone. She can call a taxi or medical transport. Those services are expensive. So is my time. So is my gas. So is my car maintenance from driving across town twice a week for 3 years. The silence was deafening. I don't understand what's happened to you, Mom said finally. This isn't like you. She was right. The old me would have already been reaching for my car keys, mentally rearranging my study schedule, calculating whether I had enough gas money to make the round trip. The old me prioritized everyone else's convenience over my own life. Maybe that's the problem, I said. Sunday brought a new crisis. Uncle Jim called this time, his voice tight with frustration. Your grandmother is in my ear about some leaky pipe under her kitchen sink. Says it's been dripping for weeks and now there's water damage starting. Why didn't you fix this when she first mentioned it? Because she'd never mentioned it to me. But I didn't say that. She should call a plumber. Come on, you know how she is about money. And you've always handled this stuff before. I'm not available for home repairs anymore. Not available. What does that mean? I took a deep breath. It means I'm a graduate student, not a handyman service. I'm focusing on my education and career now. Since when? You've never had a problem helping family before. Since I realized that helping family only seemed to apply to me. When's the last time you fixed something at her house? That's different. I don't have your skills. I learned those skills from YouTube videos because no one else would help her. You could learn them too. The conversation ended with Uncle Jim muttering about young people these days and hanging up abruptly. By Monday, the pressure campaign had intensified to a level that actually impressed me with its coordination. It was like my family had hired a military strategist. Sarah texted, asterisk grandma fell trying to fix the sink herself. She's okay but shaken up, asterisk. 20 minutes later, Mom called, asterisk she could have been seriously hurt. Is this really the hill you want to die on, asterisk? An hour after that, Dad sent, asterisk your grandmother is 78 years old. When she's gone, you'll regret this stubbornness, asterisk. The manipulation was so transparent it would have been funny if it weren't so exhausting. Grandma fell trying to fix a pipe. The same woman who'd been insisting she was too frail to change light bulbs was apparently attempting plumbing now. But the guilt-tripping worked on one level. I found myself questioning everything. Was I being unreasonable? Was I punishing her too harshly for one bad night? Then my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Is this Emma? This is Riverside Plumbing. Your grandmother hired us to fix her kitchen sink, but she's refusing to pay our bill. She gave us your number and said you handle her expenses. My mouth fell open. I'm sorry, what? She owes us $180 for the sink repair. Says her grandchild always pays for house maintenance and you'll take care of it. We need payment today or we're filing a complaint. The audacity was breathtaking. She'd hired a plumber, proving she was perfectly capable of handling her own problems, but expected me to pay for it. After a week of family-wide drama about how I'd abandoned her. I'm not paying that bill, I told the plumber. She hired you without my knowledge or consent. Ma'am, we just need someone to send the bill to her. If she can't pay it, that's between you and her. After I hung up, I sat staring at my phone in amazement. She played the family perfectly, made herself the victim, rallied everyone to pressure me into coming back, while simultaneously proving she could solve her own problems when she actually needed to. The plumber incident was my final confirmation that I'd made the right choice. But I had a feeling the real battle was just beginning. The plumber incident should have been the end of it, but I'd underestimated my grandmother's capacity for escalation. Tuesday evening, I was deep in research when my phone rang. Sarah's name flashed on the screen, but instead of her voice, I heard crying in the background. Emma. It's me, but I'm here with Grandma. She's really upset. I could hear my grandmother's voice, deliberately loud enough for me to catch. I just don't understand what I did wrong. I raised that girl, helped put her through school. Helped put me through school. With what money? The $20 graduation card. She wants to talk to you, Sarah continued. She says she'll apologize for the birthday thing if you'll just come over and help with a few things around the house. The manipulation was so obvious it was almost insulting. Create a crisis, get a family member to make the call, offer a fake apology, then immediately pivot to asking for help. I'm not coming over, I said firmly. But she's really sorry, Anne. Sarah, did you pay that plumber bill she racked up? Silence. What plumber bill? The $180 she owes Riverside Plumbing for fixing her sink. The one she told them I would pay. More silence. In the background, my grandmother's crying had suddenly stopped. You didn't know about that, did you? I continued. Just like you didn't know she was perfectly capable of hiring professionals this whole time. Emma, wait. I hung up. Wednesday brought a new strategy, the health scare. Mom called at 7 a.m., her voice shaky with panic. Grandma's in the emergency room. Her blood pressure spiked and she was having chest pains. She keeps asking for you. My stomach dropped. Despite everything, the thought of her actually being hurt made me feel sick. Is she okay? What did the doctor say? They're running tests, but... Emma, she told the nurse that her family stress has been really high lately. That her grandchild stopped speaking to her and she's been worried sick about managing on her own. And there it was. Even in a hospital bed, she was working the angles. Which hospital? I found myself driving across town, my hands shaking slightly on the steering wheel. What if this was real? What if the stress really had made her sick? The guilt was crushing. The ER was busy, fluorescent lights harsh overhead. I found my mom in the waiting area, looking genuinely frightened. They took her back about an hour ago. She was so relieved when I said you were coming. A nurse called our names 20 minutes later. We followed her through the maze of curtained areas to where my grandmother lay on a hospital bed, looking small and frail in a standard issue gown. Oh, sweetheart, she said when she saw me, tears immediately springing to her eyes. You came. How are you feeling? Better now that you're here. I've been so worried about everything falling apart at home. The stress has been keeping me up nights. Mom squeezed my hand meaningfully. The doctor appeared, clipboard in hand. Good news, all the tests came back normal. Blood pressure's back to baseline, EKG looks good. Looks like it was just anxiety. Anxiety? I asked. Very common in elderly patients dealing with major life changes or family stress. Has there been anything disruptive in your routine lately? He asked my grandmother. She gave me a look loaded with meaning. Well, there have been some family issues. That would do it. My recommendation is to try to resolve whatever's causing the stress and maintain your normal support systems. Consistency is really important for seniors. After the doctor left, my grandmother reached for my hand. I know I was hard on you at the birthday dinner. Maybe too hard. But this is what happens when our family falls apart. I end up here, scared and alone. Is that really what you want? The emotional blackmail was suffocating. But as I looked at her, perfectly fine and already strategizing her next move, something inside me hardened. She'd weaponized a hospital visit. There was no going back from this. You know what I want, Grandma? I said quietly, pulling my hand away from hers. I want a family that doesn't use emergency rooms as manipulation tactics. Her face went from sweet and vulnerable to shocked, then quickly to indignant. Manipulation. I was genuinely scared. My heart was racing, I couldn't breathe. From anxiety. About losing your free handyman service. Mom shot me a warning look, but I was done caring about keeping the peace. That's a cruel thing to say to someone who just had a panic attack because I set a boundary. Grandma, do you hear yourself? The curtain around us felt like a pressure cooker. Mom was practically vibrating with discomfort, and my grandmother's tears had dried up remarkably fast. I think we should discuss this at home, Mom interjected. No. I stood up. We're not discussing anything. Grandma, I hope you feel better. But this doesn't change anything. I walked out of that hospital with my grandmother's voice following me, after everything I've done for you. Don't you walk away from me. The same words. Always the same words. By Thursday, the family pressure had reached nuclear levels. I came home from campus to find my dad sitting in his car outside my apartment building. We need to talk, he said, rolling down his window. I'd been expecting this. Dad was usually the final boss in family conflicts, the one they sent in when Mom's guilt trips and everyone else's manipulation failed. Let's go inside, I sighed. My tiny apartment felt even more cramped with his presence. Dad was a big man, and he filled the space with his disappointment. Your mother's beside herself, he started. Your grandmother's been calling her every day crying. This has gone too far. Has it? Because from where I'm sitting, I said no to one repair request and she ended up in the emergency room trying to guilt me back into line. She's an old woman, Emma. Old people get anxious when their routines change. Her routine of exploiting me. Exploiting? His voice rose. She's family. She changed your diapers, babysat you when you were little. 30 years ago. And I've more than paid that back with 3 years of free labor and financial support. You keep track of what you do for family like some kind of ledger. The accusation stung because it was partially true. But keeping track was the only way to maintain my sanity when everyone else seemed to have amnesia about my sacrifices. Someone has to. Because the rest of you sure don't. Dad was quiet for a long moment, looking around my sparse apartment. Taking in the stack of bills, the secondhand furniture, the space heater in the corner. You know we'd help you financially if we could. I'm not asking for your help. I'm asking for you to stop demanding I sacrifice everything for someone who treats me like garbage. She doesn't treat you like garbage. She's just difficult sometimes. She called me cheap and selfish in front of 15 people because I couldn't afford the expensive gift she wanted. Then she told a plumber I'd pay her bill without asking me. Dad rubbed his forehead. Look, maybe she was out of line with the birthday thing. But you're punishing her by cutting off all help. That's not proportional. Proportional to what? To 3 years of taking advantage of me? To turning the whole family against me when I finally said no? You're being dramatic. Those 3 words lit something on fire inside me. Dramatic. The classic dismissal. The way my family had been minimizing my feelings my entire life. Get out. Emma. Get out of my apartment. I'm being dramatic. Fine. I'll show you dramatic. Don't contact me about anything related to Grandma ever again. Nothing. I'm done with all of you. Dad looked genuinely shocked. You don't mean that. Watch me. After he left, I did something I'd never done before. I blocked my grandmother's number. Then I left the family group chat. Then I drafted a message to my parents, *, I will not discuss Grandma with either of you again. My decision is final, *. I was shaking as I hit send, but it wasn't from fear anymore. It was from relief. But Friday brought a complication I hadn't anticipated. I was leaving my advisor's office when I spotted a familiar figure across the campus quad. My grandmother. Sitting on a bench, looking lost and frail, with my Aunt Lisa beside her. They brought her to my school. My blood turned to ice as I watched Aunt Lisa help my grandmother up from the bench. They were scanning the area, clearly looking for me. I ducked behind a cluster of students, my heart hammering against my ribs. They'd actually brought her to my campus. To my safe space. The one place where I could escape the family drama and focus on my future. I pulled out my phone and texted my study partner Jake, * emergency. Can you meet me at the library back in trance in 5 minutes? Don't ask questions, *. Keeping my head down, I took the long way around the science building, constantly checking over my shoulder. The audacity was breathtaking, showing up at my school like some kind of intervention. How had they even found out where my advisor's office was? Jake was waiting by the library steps, concern written across his face. Everything okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Family drama. I need to lay low for a bit. Can I hang in the graduate lounge with you? Of course. But Emma, what's going on? You've been stressed all week. As we climbed the stairs to the 4th floor, I gave him the abbreviated version. Jake listened with increasing disbelief. Wait, she came to campus. That's stalking behavior. The word hit me like a physical blow. Stalking. Was that what this was? My phone buzzed with a text from Aunt Lisa, * we're here to talk. Your grandmother drove 2 hours to see you. The least you could do is give her 5 minutes, *. 2 hours. She lived 40 minutes away, max. Even that was an exaggeration designed to make me feel guilty. Another text, * she's very upset. People are starting to stare, *. Of course. Create a scene in public to force my hand. Make me the bad guy who wouldn't help a confused elderly woman. Don't respond, Jake advised, reading over my shoulder. You don't owe them anything. But sitting in the graduate lounge, trying to focus on coursework while knowing they were somewhere on campus looking for me, felt impossible. Every time someone walked past the windows, I tensed. An hour later, my phone rang. Mom's number. Your Aunt Lisa says you're hiding from Grandma on campus. This is ridiculous, Emma. She just wants to apologize properly. She wants to manipulate me into coming back. And now they're stalking me at school. Nobody's stalking anyone. They're trying to fix this family before it's permanently broken. It was broken the moment she decided to humiliate me for not buying her expensive jewelry. So you're going to throw away a relationship with your grandmother over a birthday present? The way she framed it made me sound petty and vindictive. Like the gift was the real issue, not 3 years of being taken for granted. I'm going to protect myself from someone who treats me terribly and then sends flying monkeys to harass me when I set boundaries. Flying monkeys? You're talking about your family like we're villains in some fairy tale. Maybe because that's exactly how it felt. After Mom hung up, with a final guilt trip about how Grandma was just sitting there looking heartbroken, I made a decision that surprised even me. I'm leaving, I told Jake. Going home early today. Don't let them chase you away from your own school. But I wasn't running away. I was taking control. I walked straight across that quad, past the bench where my grandmother and Aunt Lisa were still stationed, without acknowledging them. I heard Aunt Lisa call my name, heard my grandmother's voice rise in distress, but I kept walking. Let them make a scene. Let people stare. I wasn't responsible for managing their emotions or their public image anymore. The real shock came when I reached my car and found a handwritten note tucked under the windshield wiper. *, I know you think I'm the villain now, but someday you'll understand. Family is all we have. Don't throw away 60 years of love over pride. Grandma, *. 60 years of love. I wasn't even 30 years old. She couldn't even get basic facts right in her guilt trips. I crumpled the note and threw it in the nearest trash can, but her words echoed in my head during the entire drive home. 60 years of love, the mathematical impossibility of it would have been funny if it weren't so perfectly representative of how she rewrote history to suit her narrative. But when I pulled into my apartment complex, I realized the campus ambush was just the opening move. My landlord, Mr. Peterson, was waiting by my door with an expression I'd never seen before, somewhere between confused and annoyed. Emma, we need to talk. My stomach dropped. Is everything okay? I've been getting calls all afternoon from someone claiming to be your grandmother. She says you're having some kind of mental health crisis and she's worried about your living situation. The blood drained from my face. She said what? She wanted to know about your lease terms, whether you've been paying rent on time, if I've noticed any concerning behavior. When I told her I couldn't discuss tenant information, she started crying and saying she might need to stage an intervention. An intervention. She was telling strangers I was having a breakdown that required family intervention. Mr. Peterson, I'm not having any kind of crisis. This is a family dispute that she's escalating. He studied my face carefully. That's what I figured. You've been a model tenant for 2 years. But I had to ask, she was very convincing. Very worried grandmother, scared for her granddaughter's well-being. After he left, I sat in my apartment feeling like the walls were closing in. She wasn't just pressuring family anymore. She was involving my landlord, potentially my school, who knew where else. Creating a narrative where I was unstable and needed saving. My phone rang again. Unknown number. Hello. Hi, is this Emma? This is Dr. Martinez from Student Counseling Services. We received a concerning call about one of our graduate students. The room started spinning. From whom? A family member expressing worry about your mental state and academic performance. They suggested you might benefit from immediate counseling support. She'd called my school's counseling center. Told them I was having a breakdown. My academic standing, my reputation, my advisor relationships, all potentially compromised by her lies. Dr. Martinez, I'm not having any kind of crisis. This is harassment from a family member I'm in conflict with. I see. His tone shifted slightly. That's actually not uncommon. Family members sometimes contact us when they're unhappy about a student setting boundaries. Can you come in tomorrow so we can document this properly? After hanging up, I realized the full scope of what was happening. This wasn't just family pressure anymore. She was systematically trying to undermine my independence by portraying me as mentally unstable to anyone who would listen. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, *, grandma's really scared about you. She thinks you might be having some kind of breakdown. Maybe you should talk to someone professional, *. The coordination was flawless. Plant the seed with a counseling center, then have family members echo the concern. Make everyone believe I was the one who wasn't thinking clearly. I screenshot the message and started a new folder on my phone, evidence. If she wanted to play dirty, if she wanted to attack my reputation and my stability, then I needed to start protecting myself legally. This had moved beyond family drama into something much darker. But as I sat there documenting her escalating behavior, one thought kept nagging at me. If she was willing to go this far over losing her free handyman service, what would she do when she realized I wasn't coming back at all? The answer came sooner than I expected. Saturday morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing incessantly. Not calls this time, notifications from social media platforms I rarely used. Someone had tagged me in multiple Facebook posts. With a sinking stomach, I opened the app to find my grandmother had written what could only be described as a public manifesto. Posted in 3 different family-related groups, shared to her timeline, and tagged every family member she could think of. *, heartbroken today. My granddaughter Emma, who I helped raise and supported through school, has completely cut me off. Won't even speak to me. I don't know what I did wrong. She used to be such a loving, caring girl. I'm worried something is very wrong. If anyone has advice on how to reach a grandchild who's lost their way, please share. An old woman shouldn't have to beg for her family's love. Praying she gets the help she needs. #family, #grandparents' rights, #worried, *. The post had 17 comments already. Distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years offering prayers and advice. Family friends expressing shock. Neighbors from her street promising to keep an eye on things. But it was the hashtag that made my blood run cold. #grandparents' rights. I'd heard that term before, usually in the context of custody battles. Was she actually looking into legal options? My phone rang before I could process this fully. Jake's name flashed on the screen. Emma, you need to see this. Someone's posting about you in the graduate student support group. What? Anonymous post, but it's clearly about yesterday. Someone claiming their family member is a grad student who's having a psychological break and refusing help from loved ones. They're asking if the university has resources for involuntary mental health interventions. The room tilted sideways. She was posting about me anonymously in my own school support groups, laying groundwork for the idea that I needed forced intervention. Jake, screenshot everything. I need documentation. Already done. Emma, this is beyond family drama. This is character assassination. After hanging up, I found 3 more posts across different platforms. All anonymous, all describing a young person in crisis who was isolating from family and making concerning decisions. Each one carefully worded to sound worried rather than vindictive. But the most disturbing discovery came when I googled my own name. A new Facebook page had been created, Prayers for Emma, with my full name and a photo that had clearly been taken from someone's family pictures. The page description read, supporting a young woman who's lost her way and a family who loves her. She'd created a prayer campaign page about me. The page had been shared in multiple community groups. Local churches. Neighborhood watch pages. Even a few groups related to my university. My grandmother had weaponized social media to paint me as a troubled young person in need of saving, and herself as the heartbroken family member just trying to help. I was staring at this digital assassination of my character when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw 2 police officers standing on my doorstep. My hands were shaking as I opened the door. Emma Martinez. We're here for a wellness check. Of course. The next logical escalation. Get law enforcement involved. I'm fine, I managed. Who requested this? Family member expressed concern about your well-being. Said you've been acting erratically, not responding to calls, might be in danger. The female officer was studying my face carefully. Have you been having any thoughts of harming yourself or others? The question felt surreal. 24 hours ago I'd been a normal graduate student. Now I was being evaluated for suicidal ideation because I'd refused to fix my grandmother's sink. No, absolutely not. This is a family dispute that's been blown out of proportion. Can we come in and talk for a few minutes? Just to complete our report. I let them in, hyper-aware of how my tiny apartment might look to their eyes. The bills on the counter, the sparse furniture, the general chaos of graduate student life. Would they interpret my living situation as evidence of instability? The male officer was looking around while his partner asked gentle questions about my routine, my school performance, my support system. Standard wellness check protocol, but it felt like an interrogation. Your grandmother seemed very concerned, the female officer said. She mentioned you've been refusing family help and isolating yourself. I set a boundary after being treated badly. That's not isolation, that's self-protection. They exchanged a look that I couldn't read. Has there been any history of mental health issues? The male officer asked. No. And there isn't now. This is harassment disguised as concern. After they left, satisfied that I wasn't in immediate danger but clearly noting everything for their report, I sat in my apartment feeling like a trapped animal. She'd involved police. Created fake social media campaigns. Spread lies to my school and landlord. All because I'd stopped being her free handyman. But as I stared at my phone, watching the prayers for Emma page gain more followers, I realized something that actually gave me hope. She was overplaying her hand. This level of escalation was so extreme, so obviously manipulative, that anyone paying attention would see through it. The question was, would my family finally see what they'd been enabling all these years? The answer to whether my family would see through her manipulation came Monday morning in the form of a conference call I never agreed to participate in. My phone rang at 8 a.m. sharp, Mom's number, but when I answered, I heard multiple voices in the background. Emma. We're all here. Your father and I, Uncle Jim, Sarah, and Aunt Lisa. We need to have a family meeting about this situation. An ambush call. They'd coordinated this without telling me, probably hoping I'd be caught off guard and agree to whatever they'd planned. I'm hanging up, I said immediately. Wait. Sarah's voice cut through. Please, just listen for 5 minutes. We're all worried about how far this has escalated. Finally. Someone acknowledging that the situation had gotten out of hand. Grandma showed us the Facebook posts, Uncle Jim added. And we know about the police visit. This has gotten crazy. Hope flickered in my chest. Maybe they were finally seeing her behavior for what it was. So you understand that she's been harassing me? Silence. Then Mom's voice, careful and measured, we understand that there's been a misunderstanding that spiraled out of control. A misunderstanding. Not harassment. Not manipulation. A misunderstanding. Emma, Dad's voice now, we've all talked, and we think the best solution is for everyone to take a step back and cool off. Maybe you could apologize for cutting her off so abruptly, and she could apologize for the birthday dinner incident. My mouth fell open. Apologize for being stalked and having police called on me? Nobody's being stalked, Aunt Lisa jumped in. She's just scared and doesn't know how to reach you. The Facebook posts were probably a mistake, but her heart was in the right place. Her heart was in the right place when she told my landlord I was having a mental breakdown. She's 78 years old, Emma. She doesn't understand boundaries the way younger people do. There it was again. The age excuse. As if being elderly automatically excused lies, manipulation, and character assassination. She understands boundaries just fine when they work in her favor. Sarah tried a different approach. Look, we've all agreed to help more going forward. Set up a rotating schedule so everything doesn't fall on you. Would that help? A rotating schedule. I almost laughed. Where was this schedule for the last 3 years? We didn't realize how much you were doing, Uncle Jim admitted. But now we can fix it. You didn't realize because none of you bothered to ask. But you all had her phone number. You all knew she needed help. You just let me handle it because it was convenient. The silence stretched uncomfortably long. We can't change the past, Mom said finally. But we can do better going forward. If you'll just talk to her, apologize for the misunderstanding. No. The word came out harder than I'd intended. I'm not apologizing for protecting myself from someone who tried to destroy my reputation when I said no to her. Emma, please, Sarah started. Here's what's going to happen, I interrupted. I'm going to hang up now. Then I'm going to block all of your numbers until you can acknowledge that what she did was wrong. Not a misunderstanding. Not a mistake. Wrong. You're being unreasonable, Dad said. She's family. So am I. But apparently that only matters when you need something from me. I ended the call and immediately blocked every number that had been on it. The family meeting had accomplished the opposite of what they'd intended. Instead of guilting me back into compliance, they'd shown me exactly where everyone stood. Even with overwhelming evidence of her escalating behavior, they were more concerned with getting me back in line than addressing her actions. But 30 minutes later, I discovered their backup plan. A knock at my door revealed my academic advisor, Dr. Peterson, standing in the hallway with an expression of deep concern. Emma, we need to talk about your family situation. They'd contacted my advisor directly. Dr. Peterson. I stepped back, gesturing for him to come in while my mind raced. How did you? Who contacted you? He settled into my desk chair, his usually warm demeanor replaced by professional concern. Your grandmother called the department this morning. She's very worried about you. Claims you've been exhibiting signs of severe depression and academic decline. My stomach dropped. That's not true. At all. She was quite specific. Said you've been missing family obligations, isolating yourself, and that your grades have been suffering. He pulled out a small notebook. She mentioned you've been acting paranoid and refusing help from people who care about you. The calculated precision of her lies took my breath away. She'd done research, used academic language, hit all the red flags that would trigger intervention protocols. Dr. Peterson, my grades are fine. You can check. And I haven't missed any academic obligations. I did check before coming here. Your coursework is actually exemplary this semester. His expression softened slightly. Which is why I wanted to hear your side before this goes any further. Goes any further? She's requested a meeting with the department chair. Claims she has documentation of your declining mental state and wants to discuss academic accommodations or a medical leave of absence. The room spun. She was trying to force me out of school. She has no authority to request anything about my academic status. No, she doesn't. But she's threatening to escalate to the university administration if we don't take her concerns seriously. She mentioned involving local mental health authorities. I sank onto my couch, the full scope of her strategy becoming clear. Create enough official complaints and reports that the university would be forced to act, regardless of the truth. Dr. Peterson, this is retaliation because I stopped doing free household repairs for her. That's it. The whole thing started when I couldn't afford an expensive birthday gift. He was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. That's quite an escalation over a household repair dispute. You should see the Facebook pages she created about me. Facebook pages. I pulled out my phone and showed him the Prayers for Emma page, now up to 43 followers. His eyebrows climbed steadily higher as he scrolled through the posts. This is about you. He looked genuinely shocked. Emma, this is describing someone in severe crisis. Suicidal ideation, drug use, complete personality change. None of which is true. She's building a false narrative to justify forced intervention. Dr. Peterson handed my phone back, his expression grim. This is beyond a family dispute. This is a coordinated character assassination. That's what I've been trying to tell everyone. Have you documented all of this? The escalation pattern, the false reports. I showed him my evidence folder, screenshots, recorded voicemails, even photos of the note she'd left on my car. He reviewed everything with increasing alarm. Emma, you need legal advice. What she's doing could constitute harassment, defamation, maybe even stalking. The word legal sent a chill through me. Did I really want to sue my own grandmother? But as Dr. Peterson continued scrolling through the evidence, I realized this had moved far beyond family dynamics. I'll handle the department meeting, he continued. But you should know, she's also contacted the graduate school directly. The dean's office wants to schedule a wellness consultation for you. My academic future was being threatened by someone who couldn't operate a smartphone 6 months ago but had somehow mastered social media manipulation. What happens in a wellness consultation? Psychiatric evaluation. Academic performance review. Possibly mandatory counseling or medical leave pending the results. She'd found the perfect pressure point. Attack my education, my future, my one path to independence. Force me to choose between my career and my boundaries. Dr. Peterson, if I agree to family mediation, would that satisfy the university's concerns? He considered this carefully. Possibly. If there's documented progress toward resolving the family crisis. I stared at my evidence folder, weighing my options. Give in to her manipulation to save my academic standing, or fight this publicly and risk everything I'd worked for. What if the mediation proved she's been lying about everything? Then we'd have grounds to file harassment complaints of our own. For the first time in days, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe there was a way to end this that didn't involve surrender. Set up the mediation, I said. But I want everything documented officially. Dr. Peterson nodded grimly. Emma, be very careful. Someone this manipulative won't go down without a fight. As if she hadn't been fighting dirty from the beginning. The mediation was scheduled for Friday afternoon in the Family Services building downtown. 3 days to prepare for what felt like a trial where I'd be defending my right to exist independently. But Wednesday brought a complication that made me question whether I could wait that long. I was walking back from my morning seminar when I spotted my grandmother's ancient Buick parked across from the psychology building. She was sitting in the driver's seat, just watching the entrance I'd emerged from. Our eyes met through the windshield. She didn't look away or start the car. She just sat there, staring at me with an expression I couldn't read from that distance. I pulled out my phone and took a photo, adding it to my evidence folder, then walked quickly toward the library. When I glanced back 5 minutes later, she was gone. Thursday morning, she was parked outside the graduate student housing complex. Not my building, I lived off campus, but clearly positioned to watch for me since I sometimes met study groups there. This time I called campus security. Ma'am, is this person threatening you directly? The officer asked. She's following me. Watching where I go. Has she approached you or made any threatening statements? Not today, but... Unfortunately, parking on public streets isn't illegal. If she makes direct contact or threats, call us immediately. After hanging up, I realized how carefully she was walking the line. Staying just on the legal side of harassment while making sure I knew I was being watched. The psychological pressure was exhausting. Every time I left my apartment, I found myself scanning parking lots and street corners. She was stealing my sense of safety without technically breaking any laws. But Friday morning brought the validation I'd been desperately needing. Dr. Martinez from student counseling called at 8 a.m. Emma, I wanted to update you before the mediation today. We've completed our investigation into the initial complaint about your mental state. My heart hammered against my ribs. And the complaint appears to be unsubstantiated. In fact, we've identified a pattern of false reports that suggests harassment rather than genuine concern. We'll be documenting this in your student file as protection against future allegations. Relief flooded through me so intensely I had to sit down. Additionally, Dr. Martinez continued, we've discovered that someone has been calling other university departments claiming to be concerned faculty reporting your behavior. Always anonymous tips, always describing crisis behaviors that don't match any actual observations. She'd been impersonating faculty members to build her case against me. We're treating this as a serious security issue now. Campus police have been briefed, and we're implementing protocols to verify the identity of anyone making reports about students. For the first time in 2 weeks, I felt like someone with actual authority was taking this seriously. But my relief was short-lived. An hour before the mediation, my phone rang with yet another unknown number. Emma. This is Detective Rodriguez with the County Sheriff's Office. We need to speak with you about a missing persons report. My blood turned to ice. Missing persons. Your grandmother filed a report this morning claiming you've been missing for 48 hours. Says she's been trying to reach you and fears for your safety. The audacity was breathtaking. She was escalating to police again, this time claiming I was actually missing while I was literally getting ready to meet her for mediation. Detective, I'm not missing. I'm supposed to meet her in an hour for family mediation. Silence. She didn't mention anything about mediation. She seemed genuinely distressed, said you disappeared completely. She's been stalking me around campus all week. The university has documentation of her harassment. Another pause. Ma'am, are you saying this is a false report? I'm saying she's filing police reports every time I don't respond to her calls fast enough. After hanging up with the detective, who promised to look into the pattern of reports, I realized she was trying to sabotage the mediation before it even started. If I was being investigated for filing false missing persons reports or being a missing person myself, how could I be trusted in family mediation? The manipulation was so sophisticated it was almost impressive. But as I grabbed my documentation folder and headed for my car, I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks, anticipation instead of dread. Because now I had witnesses. Official witnesses. University staff, police detectives, and soon a family mediator who would see her behavior firsthand. She'd overplayed her hand so dramatically that she was about to expose herself in front of a neutral professional. The only question was whether she'd realize the trap she'd built for herself before it was too late. The family mediation office felt like a courtroom as I walked in 10 minutes early, my folder of evidence clutched against my chest. The mediator, a calm woman in her 50s named Ms. Chen, had already arranged the chairs in a circle, 2 on one side, 1 on the other. I wasn't surprised by the seating arrangement. It would be me against everyone else, just like always. My grandmother arrived precisely on time, supported by my mother on one arm and Aunt Lisa on the other. The performance was flawless, a frail elderly woman being helped by her devoted daughters, while the cruel granddaughter sat alone across from them. "Thank you all for coming," Ms. Chen began. "I understand there's been some family conflict that's escalated beyond normal boundaries. Emma, since you requested this mediation, would you like to start by explaining your perspective?" Before I could speak, my grandmother's voice wavered across the room. "I just want to understand what I did wrong. I raised this girl, loved her like my own daughter, and now she won't even speak to me." The tears started immediately. Not the angry tears from the birthday dinner, but the heartbroken grandmother tears designed to make me look like a monster. "Mrs. Martinez," Ms. Chen said gently, "let's let Emma speak first." I opened my folder and pulled out the timeline I'd prepared. This started when my grandmother publicly humiliated me for not buying her an expensive birthday gift. But the real issue is 3 years of financial and emotional manipulation. Manipulation? Mom interjected. "You were helping family. I was being exploited." I handed Ms. Chen copies of my bank statements showing the money I'd given her. Over $2,000 while I was living on a graduate student budget. Plus twice weekly grocery runs, household repairs, and constant emergency calls. My grandmother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "I never asked for money." She insisted on helping. "I have voicemails of you asking for money." I pulled out my phone. "Would you like me to play them?" Ms. Chen held up a hand. "Let's focus on recent events. Emma, you mentioned escalation." I slid across screenshots of the Facebook posts, the Prayers for Emma page, the anonymous posts in university groups. Ms. Chen's eyebrows climbed steadily higher as she reviewed each one. "Mrs. Martinez, did you create these social media posts?" My grandmother shifted in her chair. I was worried sick. When someone you love suddenly cuts you off completely, you reach out for help wherever you can find it. By telling people I was having a mental breakdown. I asked. "You were acting very strangely, dear. Refusing to see family, hanging up on people who love you." MS. Chen was taking notes rapidly. "Emma, you mentioned university involvement." I handed over Dr. Peterson's written statement about the false reports to my academic department, plus the documentation from campus counseling services. She called my advisor claiming I was failing academically. She called student counseling claiming I was suicidal. She told my landlord I was having a crisis. My voice stayed steady despite my racing heart. This morning she filed a missing persons report while I was getting ready to come here. The room went silent. Mom and Aunt Lisa exchanged glances that suggested this was the first they'd heard of the missing persons report. "Mrs. Martinez," Ms. Chen said carefully, "did you file a police report this morning claiming Emma was missing?" I was scared. She wasn't answering her phone. I blocked her number after she sent family members to stalk me at my university. "Stalking?" Aunt Lisa jumped in. "We came to campus to talk to you." "That's not stalking." Ms. Chen held up the photos I'd taken of my grandmother's car parked outside various campus buildings. "What about this pattern of surveillance?" My grandmother's composure finally cracked. "I just wanted to make sure she was okay. When your grandchild disappears from your life, you worry." "I didn't disappear. I set a boundary after being treated terribly, and you've spent 2 weeks trying to destroy my reputation to force me back into compliance." The silence stretched uncomfortably. Ms. Chen was reviewing the Facebook posts again, her expression growing more concerned. "Mrs. Martinez," she said finally, "some of these posts contain false information about Emma's mental state and behavior. Creating public pages claiming someone is in crisis when they're not can be considered defamation. I was trying to get her help. By lying about her being suicidal and having a personality disorder." The word lying hung in the air like an accusation. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, someone with authority was calling her behavior what it actually was. But I could see the calculation in my grandmother's eyes as she regrouped for her next strategy. And I had a sinking feeling the worst was yet to come. My grandmother straightened in her chair, and I watched her transform from frail victim to calculated manipulator in real time. "You want to know the truth," she said, her voice suddenly clear and strong. "I spent 60 years taking care of everyone else. My husband, my children, my neighbors. And when I finally needed help, when I was truly alone, my own granddaughter abandoned me over money." Ms. Chen leaned forward. "Mrs. Martinez, the documentation shows a pattern of..." "Documentation?" My grandmother's laugh was bitter. "She's been building a case against me like I'm some kind of criminal. Recording our phone calls, taking pictures of my car. What kind of person does that to their own grandmother?" The manipulation was flawless. She turned my evidence collection into proof of my instability, my self-protection into cruelty. "The kind of person who's being stalked and harassed," I said firmly. "Stalked? I was checking on you because you blocked my number and refused to see me. I was terrified something had happened. So terrified that you told the university I was failing classes. So worried that you created fake social media campaigns about my mental health." For the first time, she hesitated. Ms. Chen was watching her carefully now, pen poised. "Mrs. Martinez," the mediator said quietly, "I need you to be very honest. Did you create false reports about Emma's academic and mental health status?" The room held its breath. My mother was staring at her own hands, and I could see the moment Aunt Lisa finally understood what had really been happening. I may have exaggerated some concerns," my grandmother admitted. But only because no one was taking my worries seriously. You told my advisor I was suicidal, I said, my voice steady. You created anonymous posts saying I was using drugs. You filed a missing persons report this morning while I was getting ready to meet you here. That's not exaggeration. That's systematic lying designed to destroy my reputation. Ms. Chen set down her pen. Mrs. Martinez, what you've described constitutes harassment under state law. The false reports to university officials and law enforcement could result in criminal charges. The words hit my grandmother like a physical blow. Her face went pale, and for the first time in this entire ordeal, she looked genuinely afraid. Criminal charges. Mom spoke for the first time in 20 minutes. Over a family disagreement. This stopped being a family disagreement when she involved police, university officials, and created public defamation campaigns, Ms. Chen explained. Emma, you have grounds for restraining orders and harassment charges if you choose to pursue them. I looked at my grandmother, really looked at her. The mask had finally fallen away completely. No more tears, no more frail victim performance. Just a woman who'd been caught in her own web of lies. I don't want to press charges, I said quietly. I just wanted to stop. Relief flickered across her face, but I wasn't finished. But if you contact me, my school, my landlord, or anyone else in my life again, I will pursue every legal option available. If you post about me online, call my workplace, or show up anywhere near my campus, I will file for a restraining order. This ends today. The silence stretched for several minutes before my grandmother finally nodded. I understand. Ms. Chen spent another hour establishing clear no-contact boundaries and having everyone sign agreements. As we prepared to leave, my mother approached me hesitantly. Emma, I'm sorry. I didn't realize how bad it had gotten. I shouldered my bag, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Now you know. Walking out of that building, I felt something I hadn't experienced since this nightmare began, peace. The family I'd been desperately trying to please was broken long before I set my first boundary. But I wasn't broken. And for the first time in 3 years, I was finally free.